I don't know her name, never met her, but I watched her every night for 3 weeks. From my apartment window, I could see directly across the street. Third floor, corner unit. There was a single window always lit up. Dim, yellow light, like an old lamp. She was always there. Just standing. At first I thought she was on the phone. She'd stand perfectly still for 10-15 minutes at a time, sometimes facing the window, sometimes turned away. No movement, no blinking. No sign of life except the shape of her in that light. I tried not to think much of it. Maybe she was just a weirdo. I mean, who am I to judge? But then the lamp went off. It was the 11th night. I remember exactly because I'd gotten used to her being there, almost like a background character in my routine. The light didn't come on that night or the next. Then, on the 14th night, it came back, only this time, she wasn't standing. She was sitting, right in the window frame. Her head tilted sharply to one side like it was too heavy for her neck. Her eyes were wide open, staring, straight, addressed me. I closed the curtain. The next morning I told myself it was nothing. Just a weird moment, maybe a trick of the light. But that night I looked again. I couldn't help it. She was standing again. Same position, same light. But this time, she was smiling. That's when I started having dreams. Not just regular nightmares. These felt directed, like someone was showing me images on purpose. Basements with no doors, rooms full of mirrors, but no reflection. A voice saying my name over and over until I woke up gasping. I stopped looking after that. I kept my curtains closed for good, until last night. There was a knock at my door. I live alone. It was 3:14 a.m. I didn't answer. Whoever it was didn't knock again, but they slid something under the door. A photo of me, sleeping, taken from outside my window, and scribbled on the back in shaky handwriting. I see you too. I don't really talk about this, not because I've moved on, but because I still don't understand what happened. It started about 2 years ago when I moved into a small cheap apartment outside of Portland. The place was old, kind of falling apart, but it was quiet. At least I thought it was. The first night I heard scratching, very faint, like a mouse or something behind the wall next to my bed. I didn't think much of it, just brushed it off. Old buildings make sounds. But then I heard whispering, not loud, just soft enough to make me question if it was real. It came from inside the wall, like someone was living in there. I pressed my ear against the plaster one night. There it was again, a woman's voice whispering something I couldn't quite understand. I joked about it with my friend the next day, called it my haunted wall. But the next night the whispering turned into crying, a soft, breathy sob, over and over. Sometimes it would stop if I made noise. Sometimes it got louder. I told my landlord. He brushed it off, said the unit next door was empty and that the walls were just thin. I knocked on the wall, just once, and something knocked back, not immediately, not in response, like it had been waiting. That night I slept on the couch, or tried to. At around 3:12 a.m., every light in my apartment flickered, once. Then I heard footsteps, not from above or outside, from inside the walls. They paced back and forth, back and forth. Then they stopped right behind the living room wall. I held my breath, and then from behind the wall, I heard my name. Ethan. It said my name like it knew me. I don't remember much after that, just running. I grabbed my keys barefoot and drove until the sun came up. I never went back, left everything behind. A few weeks later, a neighbor called me. They said someone new had moved into my old unit. I asked if everything was normal. They said the guy lasted one night and left a note on the door, just one sentence. There's someone behind the wall and it knows your name. Paul had been burned out for months. Deadlines, meetings, emails, it was all blending into one long caffeine-fueled nightmare. When his boss suggested he take a week off, Paul didn't hesitate. He booked a remote cabin in the mountains of Colorado. No Wi-Fi, no phone signal, just nature, solitude, and time to clear his head. The drive was long, winding through pine forests and fog-covered roads. The cabin, Cabin 13, according to the faded wooden sign nailed to a tree, was tucked deep in the woods, far from any other signs of life. It was exactly what he needed. At first it was peaceful, birds chirped, the air smelled like rain and pine. Paul spent the first day hiking, napping, reading, doing everything but checking his email. That night the fire crackled in the stone fireplace, and for the first time in weeks he felt at peace. Then came the knock. It was just after midnight. 3 slow knocks on the wooden door. Paul froze. He hadn't seen another person for miles on the drive up. There were no other cabins nearby. and no cars had passed since he arrived. He waited. Maybe it was the wind, maybe a tree branch. But then it came again. 3 deliberate knocks. Paul grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer and approached the door. He hesitated before opening it, then swung it wide. Nothing. The porch was empty, just the dense trees swaying under the moonlight, no footprints in the dirt, no animals, just silence. He shut the door, bolted it, and laughed nervously. "Probably just my imagination," he muttered. But then came the whisper. It was faint, almost like it came from inside the cabin. "Paul," he spun around, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Hello?" No answer, just the low hum of the wind through the chimney. The rest of the night was sleepless. Paul sat in the armchair, flashlight in one hand, fire poker in the other, eyes darting toward every shadow. By morning he convinced himself it was just a dream, stress, isolation, maybe even altitude sickness, but the next night it got worse. He was brushing his teeth when he saw it. In the mirror behind him stood a figure, pale skin, hollow eyes, mouth hanging open like it was screaming, but no sound came out. Paul spun around. Nothing there. The mirror was fogged from the steam, but the figure's outline remained, just for a second, before vanishing completely. He didn't sleep that night. The third night, the knocking returned, louder this time, more aggressive. Paul shouted, "Who's there?" but got no reply. Then the knocking stopped, and something else began. Scratching. From under the cabin, under the floorboards. It moved slowly, following him wherever he went. Living room, kitchen, bedroom. Then it stopped beneath his bed. Paul didn't move. He stood in the doorway, heart racing as the silence stretched out for minutes. Suddenly, every light in the cabin flickered, then went out. In the pitch black, Paul heard the whisper again, closer this time. "Paul, let me in." He bolted for the car, grabbed his keys, and threw the door open, only to find every window smashed, tires slashed, and something written in the condensation on the windshield. Cabin 14 was full. Paul didn't remember getting back inside. All he knew was that he sat in the corner until the sun came up. By morning, he packed his things and left on foot. Walked 10 miles until he found a ranger station. They listened patiently as he explained what happened. The ranger, an older man with sun-worn skin, just nodded quietly. "You were in cabin 13?" he asked. Paul nodded. The ranger sighed. "That cabin's been empty for over 30 years. We don't rent it out anymore." Paul blinked. "What?" "But I booked it online. It was listed. There was a key under the mat. Lights worked." The ranger shook his head. "That place burned down in '94. Young couple. The husband, he killed her. Said she'd been taken over by something. Said she made him open the door for it." Paul stared at him, unable to speak. The ranger leaned in and said one last thing before calling someone to drive Paul back to town. "You should be glad you left when you did. Most people don't."